Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar. We're excited you've joined us for today's session on your marketing brilliance. Identify, justify, and validate through lead tracking. This is Megan Nicholson, Marketing Manager at Suttle-Straus. I'll be your moderator for today. I'm going to start with a few housekeeping details. This session is being recorded, and you should receive a link to the recording and a PDF of the slides tomorrow by email. Please feel free to share this webinar content with colleagues that could not attend today. A question and answer session will immediately follow the presentation. If you have a question for our speaker, please type it into the questions box in your GoToWebinar panel on the right side of your screen. We'll also be posting a link to a YouTube video during the presentation, so watch that chat box for the link when the time comes. This webinar is hosted and sponsored by Suttle-Straus. Suttle-Straus was founded in 1910, and over 100 years, our company has built up the equipment and expertise to handle almost any print or marketing project. We offer creative design services, web, sheet fed and digital printing, wide format printing, direct and transactional mail, a print on demand technology for distributed networks, along with kitting and fulfillment. For more information about us, please visit us on the web at Suttle-Straus.com. I'd like to introduce our speaker for today. Anne O'Leary serves as an account executive with Kennedy Communications. Ms. O'Leary graduated from Carthage College in 2014 with all college honors and a dual degree in biology and neuroscience. Using her science background, Ms. O'Leary dissects customer data to make strategic marketing decisions for Kennedy C clients. Anne, I'm going to hand it over to you, and you can take it away and share a little bit about Kennedy C.
Excellent. Thanks, Megan. Okay, everyone should be able to see my screen at this point in time. Just wanted to say thanks for tuning us in today. I'm really excited to be here with you to chat about lead tracking and how you can use it to identify, justify, and then validate your marketing brilliance. Now, I'm sure that many of you are familiar with the TV show Mad Men. I know that it is one of my all-time favorite Netflix binges. And as most of you probably know, it depicts the life of Don Draper, a brilliant ad man and his team at a Madison Avenue advertising agency. Episodes range from pitching creative ideas to clients to determining the best copy for a target audience. And of course, the show, which is probably why it's so binge-worthy, also includes plenty of inter-office drama for the drama junkies out there. I'd say that the show paints a glamorous version of the advertising industry, or at least as it was then. And if you want that depiction to be what advertising is today, I'm sorry, it just wouldn't cut it. You know, Don Draper, he wouldn't cut it. While we see the characters develop creative for print, draw ads, and develop headlines, what we don't ever see them do is use metrics to determine things like return on their investment. Now, I understand that when the show was set, they had less than a handful of dominant marketing channels to pick from: big daily newspapers, magazines, and 3 TV networks. And they couldn't easily collect the same data that we can today on our prospects and marketing spend. Back in the 60s, measuring your marketing ROI was tricky, if not near impossible. So the Hollywood writers of the program kept it real and kept ROI out of their script, but we aren't in the 1960s anymore, and present-day marketers have all the resources needed to understand what media and messaging platforms are the best for their industry. So really similar to the show, it's easy to get caught up in the glitz and glam of marketing campaigns, but if you want to put marketing at the table of the C-suite, you had better think critically about the return on your efforts. not tracking your outcomes is being stuck with Don Draper. You're just making something pretty and creating snazzy headlines, but proceeding blissfully onto a new destination without a GPS. I think that Mad Men really represents a great contrast of how advertisers used to approach marketing versus how we really should approach our responsibilities. So today, we as marketers, we can't afford to skip that critical step of measuring our marketing ROI. Don Draper, I'll give you it, he was a marketing brilliant in the show because of his creative ability, but present-day marketing directors and professionals are expected to identify target markets, understand audience needs, craft pointed messaging, and deliver qualified quick close leads. While smart campaigns can come from the headline of an ad or copy of a TV spot, it is only brilliant if it intersects the data that drives your marketing plans and your company's business objectives. So knowing your marketing ROI is how marketing gets that seat at the table. Companies who utilize analytics show productivity and profitability rates 5 to 6% higher than their peers. And IBM states that companies that use analytics to make decisions earn 40% more money than companies who do not. Knowing what marketing outlet is helping your business grow can make all of the difference. But I'm sure you're already aware of that, and that may be why you tuned in today. So by the end of this webinar, you're going to learn how to identify your most successful marketing outlets, how to justify your marketing plan to key stakeholders, and how to improve your customer's journey. And hopefully, you'll start to feel like a marketing brilliant. So as Megan mentioned, my name is Anna Larry, and I work as an account executive for Kennedy Communications. A little bit about Kennedy. Kennedy has been part of the Madison advertising scene for 35 years and has really been at the forefront of lead tracking and marketing or measuring your marketing ROI. With 35 team members, our agency prides ourselves on being media agnostic. Being media agnostic means that we can tap into our wide range of skills to direct the right message to the right platform, no matter the budget or target audience. Since Kennedy is open to all platforms, we use lead tracking to identify which one is right for both our regional and national clients. So what is this lead tracking that we utilize? Well, lead tracking is the process of following prospects who have expressed interest in your product or service through the purchase funnel. It can be as simple as recording the number of sales your business had in a month, or as complicated as recording each touch point a customer had with your company prior to their purchase. The more you learn about the source of your customers and their purchasing habits, the more pointed you can make your marketing plan. And there are many ways to track your leads, and Kennedy utilizes them all, but I would say probably one of our favorite and cheapest, as well as easiest ways to implement lead tracking is by purchasing a tracking phone number. Tracking phone numbers cost less than $10 a month and also record the phone calls, which we're going to discuss the importance of later. Other tracking options include point of sale data, coupon codes, and counting foot traffic. And then, of course, digital marketing has its own tracking options. And if you live in the digital space, I'm sure you're aware of some of these, such as Facebook pixels, web forms, or even UTM codes. With all of the various tracking capabilities, what's really nice is that most of those online media have sophisticated tracking that can be integrated with other media. And most of these tracking methods allow the marketing source to be easily documented when someone calls or makes a purchase. And that is key. So now that we have this general understanding of what lead tracking is, let's talk about how you can use it to identify your most successful marketing outlets. I think we can all agree that marketing is a blend of branding and sales promotion. Branding is your promise to your customer. Why does your company exist? Why should they choose you? Whereas sales promotion is the why now. When looking at the customer journey, branding is the most prevalent at the top of the funnel, and sales promotion is at the bottom of the funnel. But both branding and sales promotion are needed for a successful marketing plan. If we think about our Mad Men reference, Don Draper, he only talked about branding, but today's marketers need to integrate that sales promotion into their responsibilities. Another difference between that top of the funnel branding and bottom of the funnel sales promotion would be the cost of the media. So it's really important that before we dive into identifying your most successful marketing outlets and calculating your marketing ROI, that we remember not every marketing outlet is going to produce a low transaction cost, but they all kind of work together. So you need to be careful when comparing your costs because of that. Looking at the cost of a branding versus the cost of the sales promotion outlet probably isn't apples to apples. So just a word of caution for you. For example, television and radio, they are targeting the top of the funnel, and their costs to get the message out tend to be less than other media, but broadcast media doesn't usually fare well when trying to determine your marketing ROI. And the reason why is because people aren't writing down the tracking phone number you put at the end of your ad. So you don't have a lot of direct conversions to show for that spend. You really need to look for the impact at the top of the funnel media through other means like spikes in web traffic or perhaps better redemption rates on direct mail. And unfortunately, we just don't have the time today to talk about evaluating both branding and sales outlets. So we're just going to focus on the bottom of the funnel during this webinar. I just want you to remember that you still do need that top of the funnel to make the bottom of the funnel work. Even though measuring the sales promotion and bottom of the funnel activities is a lot easier. So let's get into actual lead tracking. If you don't have a sophisticated tracking system to follow your customer's journey through the sales funnel yet, don't worry, that's okay. You can start small. You can start by finding two big picture benchmarks. The first is revenue per transaction, and the second is cost per acquisition. So on the screen are these two equations. The very first one, revenue per transaction, is a very easy calculation. You just have to go back to last year's company financials, get the total sales, and divide it by the number of transactions, and boom, there's your number. Finding this big picture benchmark is going to be a really good way to get a sense of where your business currently stands in terms of profitability. Now, the second number, the cost per acquisition, you're going to take your total marketing spend and divide that by transactions, and boom, there's your second number. This number is going to be a blend of all the marketing that you currently do. And going forward, this number will represent the perfect blend of media that will put you alongside the mythical marketing icons like Don Draper. So obviously, when you're comparing those two numbers, your cost per acquisition should be less than revenue per ticket. If not, you might have a different marketing issue. So the wider the margin you have between those two, the more profitable you're going to be. For example, let's say that you spend 5% of your revenue on advertising, and your average revenue per transaction is $100. That means that you should be paying $5 for cost per acquisition, or 5% of that transaction revenue. Now, while these big picture numbers that I just gave you are good, the revenue per transaction and cost per acquisition aren't going to allow you to dive deeper to improve and begin seeing which marketing efforts are working in your favor or what marketing is a waste of your funds. This deep dive is going to be done by being more specific and gathering that cost per contact information for each marketing activity. So hopefully you're already recording basic information like who called and when, or how many sales you've had in a month. If not, this is going to be your first or your next step in identifying your marketing success. Simply just begin counting calls, web forms, or foot traffic. And after you start recording that information, that's when you can begin to layer in the tracking data to attribute the sale and lead to a marketing source, such as this person came in from newspaper, this call was sourced from paid search, that type of linking. And you do this by adding tracking numbers to your mailers, radio spots, and newspaper inserts. You dig into web analytics. Did unique visitors go up or down during a promotion? What pages on your site saw an increase in visitors? There's lots of different tracking that you can begin to implement. And remember, the more tracking you implement across all marketing outlets, the more informative your data is going to get. Now, for example, we have this chain of hair salons as a client who records coupon codes on all of their marketing activities. That means Facebook, newspaper inserts, you name it, it's going to have a coupon code on it. And when that code is inputted into their cash register, the corresponding sale is flagged with a marketing source identifier. That allows us to go back and review revenue per redeemed newspaper coupon, paid search, mailer, or Facebook post. And we can adjust offers and budgets to the media that demonstrate the best return based off of our lead tracking. So this is a really good example of how you can measure marketing tactics against one another. Adding tracking means that you're going to have a lot of data to wade through. So find the most meaningful data and just stay with it. In the case of the hair salons, our meaningful data that we track is new customers versus existing customers. We find that media that brings in new customers should get a premium over media that is used more heavily by existing customers. And with tracking, we can adjust that media spend to reduce discounting to those people who already frequent our business in favor of those that we want to get through the front door for the first time. Now, as you can imagine, with all of the tracking that we do, there's a lot of data flowing through our system. So to consolidate all of this, Kennedy has its own proprietary lead tracking program that we use, but there are a lot of other companies that offer similar products. Examples include SalesExec, Pipedrive, and Salesforce. They're all different lead tracking programs. And by tracking your leads and designating which marketing outlet they were sourced from, like whether it came from a website, whether it came from direct mail or social media, you can start to segment out your cost per contact for each marketing outlet, which really allows you to begin to compare those different outlets against one another. So this cost per contact number that we've been chatting about is also pretty easy to calculate once you have your tracking in place. And all you have to do is divide the marketing outlet spend by total contacts generated by that outlet. So once you have cost per contact for each outlet, then you can start to compare and define that outlet's marketing value for your company. You might see trends in, let's say, direct mail has a much better cost per contact than a newspaper insert does for your company. So you can shift dollars in your marketing plan and say, I want cheaper direct mail leads over more expensive newspaper leads. And as you work to get more leads, your costs are going to rise. So you'll likely see that cost per contact go up. And that's because you're picking off the low-hanging fruit early, but then you're going to need to pay a little bit more to gain that extra business. And that's okay. It's totally fine if you start to see your cost per contact rise, because most businesses have larger profits as their sales increase and their fixed costs become a smaller part of the transaction cost, which really allows your business to pay more to reach additional customers. So at the end of the day, it's not a terrible thing that you're seeing your cost per contact go up if your business is growing. And, we as marketers, our whole end game is to help our business grow and remain profitable. And knowing what marketing outlet is helping our business grow can make all the difference. So if you haven't done so already, I really, really highly recommend that you put it on your to-do list to identify your most successful marketing efforts. So now that we know and understand how to identify our most successful marketing outlets, let's talk about how we can use that information to justify your marketing plan to key stakeholders. Going back to our Mad Men reference, throughout the show, Don Draper didn't dazzle his clients with numbers to get them on board. It's not like he was just chucking data at them to make them see why his creative is the right creative to go with. Don sold his marketing ideas through emotion, and he understood it correctly. Emotion sells. I mean, it even sells in an agency pitch, but what's tricky is knowing whether that same emotion will sell in a store or online. But if he would have had data, it would have told him. So for those of you that haven't seen the show, I have a clip that we're going to watch here in just a second. And for those of you that have seen the show, hopefully it just reminds you how wonderful it is. Megan, can you go ahead and send that link out to everybody?
Great, so everyone should see it in the chat window of their GoToWebinar module, a YouTube link to this clip.
Great, thanks, Megan. Alrighty, so hopefully you've all have finished up watching that clip, and I think it's pretty clear that Don relied really heavily on that emotional appeal to make the pitch to those clients, but then also the emotional appeal of actually selling that lipstick in store. So in true marketer fashion, I have an emotion for you. How about the fact that 80% of CMOs feel this intense pressure to show financial results, yet only 1/3 report financial numbers. That CMO CFO working relationship is an indicator of the CMO's ascent to the revenue team and the executive table. So it's time that those remaining 2/3 start to report the data. Take a quick gut check. Where do you fall into that mix? Are you feeling pressure in reporting or feeling pressure because you're not reporting? We actually have a client whose CFO reports financial numbers and the relationship between leads and revenue directly to us, in addition to the rest of the team. He includes us because he knows that we can help make adjustments through our marketing that can impact his numbers. Finance shares the past, whereas marketing gets to share the future. We have a seat at the table because that client understands the financial impact our work has on their business. And we just spoke about how you can identify your most successful marketing outlets, and that is going to be exactly the information you need to use to justify your marketing plan to key stakeholders. I don't know about you, but how many times have you heard the question, why are we spending money on radio, or insert any sort of marketing activity, or what are we getting out of Facebook anyway? Raising brand awareness doesn't necessarily speak to our key stakeholders, since there isn't an easy way to quantify it. But that's not true. There is this easy way to quantify it. Your key stakeholders, they speak in terms of revenue, and we as marketers tend to speak in terms of reach and impressions. But when you begin to speak in terms of conversions and the cost of a conversion, you combine the two. So you can begin justifying your marketing spend that way. By knowing your cost per conversion, cost per acquisition, and the revenue per transaction, you're able to speak your financial team's numbers and language, and you can start to have conversations about your marketing spend that is going to show direct correlation to the success of the business. One of our clients is a really large water treatment company, and as competition moved in, they panicked because they started to see their sales falter. And as a result, they began to shift dollars in their marketing plan to sales promotion and got way too focused on the bottom of the funnel. As they shifted more money to the bottom of the funnel, sales promotion only, their sales started to falter even more than what they already had. That client had been lured to more measurable media because they couldn't quantify the effect of spending money on TV. So we went ahead and conducted a study for them across multiple markets, and compared the cost per contact for direct mail in those markets with television support in those markets without. Through that study, we found that markets with effective branding on TV had direct mail cost per contact that were more than $100 less than those without branding. And without lead tracking, we wouldn't have been able to pull this data or show the impact branding had on their other marketing costs and why going to just a sales promotion approach wasn't a good strategy for their business. And as you can see by these numbers, we definitely find mail to be an effective medium, especially when it's supported with branding. So similar to our client, your management team may want to know which medium is producing the best results, but here it is your duty to talk about the marketing blend. Don't get lost in sales promotion. It's the orchestration of all the media, each doing their part to drive down cost. And you need to remind your stakeholders that all of your marketing efforts play off one another. They can't forget to look at the big picture, because data, it doesn't lie. So leveraging it to showcase the strengths in your marketing plan is really a foolproof way to get people on board. You can also use lead tracking to show the impact of a new marketing campaign or direction. Let's say you're running a pure sales promotion and you switch some of your campaign to focus on brand building. From your gut feel, you may not get a sense of the impact the shift had, but tracking your contacts or conversions from the old plan to the new plan, you can gain that insight as to whether or not the new messaging and focus is doing what you need it to do. You can start to attribute increases in contacts with various campaigns you're running and narrow down your messaging to whatever speaks the best to your target audience. Most recently, I actually had to do something very similar to this. I used lead tracking to justify a shift in marketing funds from paid search, bottom of the funnel, to television, top of the funnel for a client. This graph shows tracked leads to their business, and what we noticed was that when we ran TV, their lead count went up because they needed that awareness in their market. And when they were off TV, they saw a dip in lead count. The decision of where to put their marketing funds was made for us completely based off of lead tracking and the data. Without lead tracking, you wouldn't have this type of insight into what's working for your business and what's not. And when the plan is working, now you have the data to justify the marketing spend to your stakeholders that might be just a little bit skeptical. Another really cool way that lead tracking can help justify your marketing plan to key stakeholders is its ability to identify the geographical location of inquiries. You can start to find hotspots within your territory for conversions and then use that to explain why you're doing a marketing push in one region but not another. If you don't have enough of a budget to cover your whole market, you can use lead tracking to shrink your universe and focus your marketing on the most productive neighborhood. Too often we find that with smaller budgets, people try to do too many things. They're kind of spreading themselves thin. Just do a few things well and narrow your target, and you can create real impact that you need for success, all based off of data from lead tracking. Finally, you can use lead tracking to show the quality of contacts coming in, such as web leads versus direct mail. And this can open up a conversation between your team and the sales team about marketing efforts. And it's the type of collaboration that can continue and really improve your customer's journey. Once you as a marketer have accomplished your task of getting someone to connect with your business, it's on the rest of your company to help move that prospect through the customer journey. 30 to 50% of leads will choose who they buy from based on who they speak to first. And this figure supports that everyone in your organization is part of the sales process, from your receptionist to your customer service reps, to your sales team. Anyone a buyer can interact with needs to be empowered to move that conversation along. Buyers, they want quick answers, and they're willing to pick up a phone to get the info they need. Calls really turn into revenue 10 times more frequently than web leads do. So this means that handling calls properly is really important. So you might be wondering, well, how does lead tracking help with this? Well, in the very beginning, I had mentioned that many tracking phone numbers record the phone conversation. These call recordings are a huge benefit of lead tracking and an excellent way to start improving your customer's journey. If your customer service reps or salespeople are answering the calls quickly and politely, that's great. But what about the content that they share? Are they driving the conversation, providing valuable information? You aren't going to know the answers to these questions unless you sit by their desk and listen over their shoulder, which is not something that I recommend. Alternatively, you can use phone recordings from your lead tracking to gain insights. Having call recordings allows you to listen to how those initial calls are handled, and you can then identify strengths and pain points in the conversation. Let's say that you have two CSR reps. One that's great at converting calls into sales or appointments, and another that leaves something to be desired. By listening to the call recordings, you may notice that the one that's struggling isn't listening for cues in the customer interaction so they can direct them properly. In many companies, the person at the front desk is the least trained person in the business. Using those call recordings, you can work with those CSR reps to highlight what is a sales lead and improve their knowledge to yield better results. Now, maybe as a marketing professional, you specifically won't be having those conversations with your CSR reps, but you're able to provide the data to the people that can make that change and impact. Another benefit of those call recordings is that you may notice that your business is getting many calls regarding the same general question. Maybe that means that your marketing materials need to educate better, or your website needs to educate better. This can help reduce the number of calls your reps are fielding during the day to free up their time for more of those true sales leads. Finally, you can use call recordings to determine which days have higher call volume or appointment requests to better staff sales and CSR reps. A simple employee schedule adjustment allows you to cover more time, and it gives your customers more flexibility in contacting you, overall improving their experience with your brand. Lead tracking can improve your customer's journey by giving them an outlet to provide feedback. If you are tracking your customers, you can also ping them for feedback more easily on how your company performed and to learn about their customer journey. You can encourage satisfied customers to leave positive reviews online for potential customers to see. We all know how important online reputations are. And you can catch issues with your current customers to correct for the future. Tracking gives managers a line of sight into the customer experience and the performance of their employees. Overall, lead tracking, no longer an option. It's a must-do in the marketing world. If you aren't tracking, you're losing out on efficiencies and missing important insights into your customer base. So as we discussed today, tracking, 3 key benefits for your organization. Number 1, you can identify your most successful marketing outlets. Number 2, you can justify your marketing plan to key stakeholders. And number 3, you can improve your customer's journey. So as a reminder, to start identifying your most successful marketing outlets, first, find your company's number. Know what the revenue per transaction is. Next, look at cost per acquisition. Implement tracking on your marketing pieces. Track website visits via Google Analytics, add tracking numbers to direct mail pieces, and track web forms coming into your business. Once this tracking is in place, calculate out that cost per contact for those efforts. Compare bottom of the funnel activities against one another and find what avenues are producing the best results for you. Secondly, that justify your marketing plan to key stakeholders. Once again, starts out the same exact way, just know your numbers. Be able to speak to what your stakeholders care about, transactions, and be able to tie those back to your efforts. Remember, the CMO's job isn't to share what's been done, it's to share what's coming. So use your new tracking data to show the success of outlets and justify the marketing spend. If key stakeholders can see and understand what they're getting for their marketing dollars, they'll better know the value of that spend. Lastly, improving your customer's journey. Listen to the call recordings to find pain points in the customer experience with your company. Reach out to those you've tracked in as contacts in sales and see how they like their services. Ask for feedback and then use their insights to better your process. So let's go back to our opening discussion about Mad Men. If Don Draper had the ability to do lead tracking, would his pitch change? Well, he probably would have still sold on emotion, but he would have been able to justify his creative messaging, target audience, and marketing spend with hard, irrefutable numbers. In fact, I think that adding lead tracking to Don Draper's toolkit would have made him even more of a marketing brilliant. So that's all that I have for you today. Once again, thank you to Suttle-Straus for hosting this webinar. I'm happy to take any questions that you may have regarding lead tracking, implementation, or use.
Great. Thank you, Anne, for that informative presentation. We will now open it up for questions. If you have a question for our speaker, please type it into the questions box in your GoToWebinar panel on the right side of your screen. While everyone's submitting questions, I wanted to remind you that this webinar has been sponsored by Suttle-Straus. If you're looking for a trusted vendor to help guide you through your next print or mailing project, please consider us and request a quote at Suttle-Straus.com. Now, Anne, most people today are doing what I would call multi-channel marketing campaigns where there's anywhere from 2 to 10 different touch points before a customer converts. What's your, I guess, subscribed attribution model? Are you giving 100% to the last touch, or do you spread it out evenly, or what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so that's a great question, Megan. I can speak to it from the Kennedy side of things, and then in the room I actually have a colleague who, his name is Dave. He works in our web department, and he has a lot of information from the digital aspect of helping to qualify those leads. So from Kennedy, we're not necessarily giving attribution scores to the contacts that we're getting throughout the customer process. Many of our clients are more of a one contact and done sort of feel. You know, our whole goal with a lot of our marketing materials is to get that customer to take an action right away rather than to nurture them through the process. So that's from the Kennedy side of things. I don't know, Dave, if you can add bigger picture attribution information.
Yeah, if you're in a position where you know you have a long sales cycle and you know that customers are going to interact with you across many different touches, possibly many different channels, that can be pretty complex to handle, but there are definitely systems out there that can make that possible. Particularly if you're going across different channels that get you into the non-digital space, it gets a little bit trickier. Anything in the digital realm, you usually have some advantages as far as tracking goes. But as soon as you get into things like direct mail or television, it can be a little bit tougher. A lot of places that I've worked with in the past have made good use of lead tracking systems like Marketo or HubSpot, or other sort of nurturing platforms like that, which would allow you to collect touches on known customers across many different channels, and then also help you track and analyze those touches along the way. So then that question of how do you attribute as far as do you go first touch, last touch, evenly spread, somewhere in the middle, that usually, ideally, is answered by what you find in your tracking information. You look at the actual real world results that you've collected, and you'll find if a first touch or a last touch is extremely important in your industry, or if perhaps it is all the touches kind of working together. But that would come out of the data that you collect from a pretty comprehensive data collection platform.
Yeah, and I can share that here at Suttle-Straus we use HubSpot as our marketing automation kind of lead tracking system, and we get a lot of data out of that. Do you have any thoughts about people? I mean, how reliable is the question that everybody uses, how did you hear about us, or how did you find us? And how does that compare when you actually have a data tracking in place that actually shows where they come through? Can people tell you accurately how they heard about you?
Yeah, another really great question. I think one of the challenges with the question, how did you hear about us, is people typically think of the most recent connection that they've had with your business, whether that they saw a newspaper ad, they saw, some sort of sales promotion, direct ask. They're not necessarily thinking, well, I saw you on television, and because of all those times I saw you on television, when I got that postcard, that made me want to connect with you and contact you. It wasn't your postcard as to how they heard about you. It was the branding, the television that they might have heard about you from. So it's a little tricky sometimes with that question to actually get a good feel on where folks are finding you. Of course, it's always a great gut check. More data is never a bad thing. But by having tracking directly tied to your marketing outlets, you can for certain say, yes, this person came from this activity, or I know that this person came through, let's say social media, for example. And we can see them go from Facebook to our website to contacting our client. So they found us through Facebook, even though it looks like that came from the website.
Great. Well, that's all the questions we have for today. So we're going to wrap it up. If you have more questions you didn't get a chance to ask, you can email them to me at marketing@Suttle-Straus.com, and I can connect you to Ann or get back to you directly. Everyone should watch their email tomorrow for a link to the recorded presentation and a PDF slide set. Thanks, everyone, and have a great rest of your day. And thank you, Ann.
Great. Thank you.